Why was she the only one who noticed? The Afghan mountains glowed with the morning sun, crimson bleeding into gold, as Lieutenant Sarah Falcon Mitchell adjusted the dial on her scope for the third time. The men said it was nerves. She knew better. Something about the valley below didn't fit. It was too still, too neat, too rehearsed. Her finger rested lightly against the trigger guard. She breathed slow, deliberate, as she always did before a shot. But there was no target yet, only shadows, guard towers, and a silence that set her teeth on edge. She had learned to read silence long before she wore this uniform. Back in South Dakota, her grandmother used to tell her, "The falcon hunts alone because it sees what the others don't." As a girl, she thought it was just another story. But now, crouched behind rock in a land that had swallowed armies whole, she realized her grandmother had been teaching her how to survive long before war gave her a rifle. "Falcon status check." Commander James' voice cut softly through her earpiece, steady, controlled, a tone that kept men alive. "Eyes on, but something's off," Sarah whispered. The compound below was supposed to hold a captured CIA operative, a man they had less than 6 hours to rescue before he was moved or broken. Intelligence said 15 guards, maybe 20, a routine extraction on paper. But as Sarah studied the movement below, she counted double that, maybe more. Their rotations were too perfect, their posts too visible, like actors hitting marks on a stage. Guard patterns are too clean, feels staged. No dogs either. Every Afghan compound has dogs. This one's quiet, dead quiet. Silence followed. Then again lower, copy Falcon, hold. A pause as other voices worked in the background, pulling satellite comparisons, recalculating risk. 30 seconds later his reply came, sharper this time. "Jesus, you're right, 40+ fighters at least. Intel was wrong. This is a setup." Sarah didn't smile, not outwardly, but inside a grim satisfaction stirred. She had seen it. She had trusted her instincts. Her grandmother's voice whispered in memory, "Trust your eyes, trust what others miss." But the satisfaction was fleeting, because now they were in it, already deployed, already committed. The window to save that operative, if he was even here, was closing. "We can't abort," said, confirming her thought. "We adapt. Falcon, you're our eyes. If this blows sideways, we'll need you to cover us. Copy." "Copy." Her breathing slowed, her heartbeat steadied. Doubt faded into focus. This was what she was trained for. This was why she was here. And yet, even as calm settled over her, another memory pushed through. Her first briefing with these men, months ago. She remembered walking into the room, carrying her folder, wearing her uniform crisp and new. She remembered the whisper that hadn't bothered lowering its voice. "Think she can handle the real thing?" Martinez, she later learned. She had pretended not to hear, pretended not to notice the sideways glances, the silence when she entered, pretended, but she had felt every ounce of their doubt, sharp as shrapnel. That was the thing about proving yourself. It was never one clean shot. It was 1,000 quiet moments where you chose to keep standing. Now in these mountains, the proving ground had arrived. She shifted slightly, steadying her rifle across stone as the team began their approach. Shadows moving through pre-dawn dark. She tracked them for a heartbeat, then returned to the compound. Something was waiting down there. She felt it as surely as the cold against her cheek. 57 seconds after the team breached the outer wall, the valley lit up. Floodlights blazed. Shouts in Pashto erupted. And then the sound that every soldier knows too well, automatic fire ripping the morning apart. "Contact, contact." Martinez's voice exploded in her ear. Sarah's scope swung left, 3 guards on the north wall. One had the team pinned. She squeezed, crack, he dropped. Shift right, another sniper lining up on Martinez. Crack, gone. Her breathing didn't quicken, her pulse didn't spike. This was her rhythm, her stillness in chaos. Each shot measured, each kill clean. "Good shooting, Falcon." His voice came tense but alive. "Moving to target building." But she already knew, already saw what they couldn't. Fighters pouring out of hidden bunkers, reinforcements spilling from shadows that shouldn't have been there. This wasn't just an ambush. It was a net drawn tight meant to suffocate them all. Her grandmother's voice came again. The Falcon doesn't panic when surrounded. It sees the path others don't. Sarah swept her scope east, 20 more fighters moving to cut off the team's retreat. Iron east wall, 20 hostiles trying to box you in. Copy? His voice stayed steady, but beneath it, a thread of desperation bled through. Falcon, how many rounds left? Enough, she lied. She had fired 12, 18 left in the mag, 3 spares, 60 fighters, maybe more. Numbers didn't favor her, but numbers never had. She adjusted, shifted again, found higher ground. 3 enemy snipers setting up against her team. Crack, crack, crack. 3 clean kills. But then her scope caught something stranger. A figure on a far rooftop, not in uniform, expensive clothes, binoculars in hand, watching, directing, calm, casual, as if the firefight were entertainment. She tightened her focus, adjusting windage, distance. Too far for a clean shot, but her gut knew. He was pulling the strings. Iron, I've got eyes on high-value target. Civilian clothes, north roof. He's directing the attack. Can't confirm ID. Can't take the shot clean. Even as she whispered it, she saw him raise a radio. Enemy fire intensified instantly on position. Her chest tightened. Whoever he was here for blood. The compound roared alive. Gunfire, shouts, explosions tearing through the valley. Her teammates were inside a cage, and she was the only thing keeping the cage from closing. For a heartbeat, doubt pierced her calm. Could she hold them off? Could she buy enough time? Then came the memory, her grandmother placing an eagle feather in her small hand years ago. You were born to see far, little one. Born to strike true. She blinked, exhaled, found another target, crack, gone. The Falcon didn't miss. But beneath the precision, beneath the calm, something else stirred. A question, one she tried to silence but couldn't. How many more shots until I run out? And when that moment came, what would she have left to give? What did it feel like to be outnumbered 6-1? For most, it meant panic, blind fire, frenzied shouts over radio channels that quickly turned to static. But for Sarah Falcon Mitchell, crouched on the ridge with her rifle steady against stone, it meant something different. It meant clarity. She tracked the enemy like a hunter watching patterns before the prey even knew they were seen. Crack. Another hostile dropped, his body crumpling before his comrades realized where the shot had come from. Crack. A second fell, his weapon clattering down the compound steps. Still, for everyone she felled, 2 seemed to rise. The numbers didn't lie. They never did. Falcon status, his voice cut through, calm, controlled, but edged now. Rounds holding, eyes on you. You've got more fighters moving from the ridge. They're trying to box your exit. A silence, then understood. It wasn't enough. Through her scope, Sarah caught movement that twisted her gut, a figure bolting toward a mounted gun emplacement. If that weapon came alive, the valley would be a slaughterhouse. She adjusted, breath in, breath out. Crack. The man pitched backward, never reaching the gun. Thanks for the save, Martinez's voice panted over comms. Guess you can handle the real thing after all. She almost smiled, almost. Because Martinez's words carried more weight than he knew. Months ago, he hadn't lowered his voice when he'd questioned her place on the team. Think she can handle it. The phrase had stuck like a thorn. Now, under fire, he was seeing what she already knew, that this wasn't about handling it. It was about surviving it and keeping them alive in the process. But as she adjusted her rifle, another thought pressed in. The man on the far roof, the one in civilian clothes commanding the ambush with eerie calm, he hadn't left. He was still there, still watching. Who was he? Her instinct screamed that he mattered more than any fighter with a rifle. Yet the math of war demanded she protect her team first. Choices, always choices, and never enough time to make them. Falcon's voice again. Building breached. No sign of the package. Repeat, no operative inside. Sarah's chest tightened. Empty. Then what's, she started but stopped herself. The answer was already forming, bitter and cold. A trap not for the operative, for them. Her scope swept quickly, scanning for clues. And then she saw it, the wiring along the walls, the strange crates stacked near doorways. Her stomach dropped. Iron, listen, that building is rigged. They planted explosives, enough to level the compound. A pause then. Copy that, we're pulling out. But pulling out wasn't so simple, because the net was already closing. Fighters were converging, their paths deliberate, cutting every route but one. Sarah forced herself to breathe slow to see. Her eyes followed the terrain, the lines of the valley, the cliff walls that framed it. And then she saw it, a goat path etched into the rock, almost invisible, winding up the western wall. Narrow, dangerous, but passable. Exit west, goat trail on the cliff face, only way out. Another pause, longer this time. Falcon, can you cover us to the wall? Her hand brushed the magazine at her side, counted silently. One full, two spares, it wasn't enough, it never would be. But she answered without hesitation, I'll hold. The radio crackled with acknowledgments, boots pounding against stone as the team shifted direction. Sarah adjusted, repositioning herself higher along the ridge. The rocks bit into her elbows. Dust filled her lungs. She didn't move like the pack. She moved like water, like her grandmother had taught her, never fighting the land, always flowing with it. The first fighter to flank the team dropped with a shot to the chest. The second crumpled mid-step, his rifle falling silent. Her shots echoed like punctuation in the chaos. But they were closing. Boots pounded nearer, voices shouted in a language she understood just enough to catch. Coordinates, directions. They had spotted her. Falcon, what's your status? Getting crowded, she whispered. Can you hold? Sarah looked at her dwindling rounds, the muzzle flashes lighting the valley, the dozen men already climbing toward her position. The math said no. Her grandmother's voice said otherwise. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what you must despite it. I'll hold. She swung her rifle back to the rooftop figure. He had ducked after her near miss, but not far enough. She could see him now, crouched behind a wall, still issuing orders. He mattered. She knew it in her bones. Range 830 meters. Wind 15 miles per hour southwest. Variables stacked against her, but sometimes the Falcon had to strike beyond reach. She steadied, breath and squeeze. The shot punched concrete inches from his feet. He dove. She adjusted, fired again. The wall splintered where he hid. For a moment, enemy fire below faltered, disorganized, shaken. Whatever you just did, Falcon, it worked, Martinez grunted. Keep it up. But keeping it up meant something she hadn't yet admitted. It meant staying. It meant sacrificing herself so the rest could climb that wall and escape. The enemy was within 50 meters now, close enough she could hear their boots on rock, their shouts carrying urgency. Her rifle wasn't built for close quarters, but she drew her sidearm, the weight of it grounding her. Her hand brushed the grenades at her belt, the last of her aces. She pulled one free, waited, then rolled it across stone as two fighters rounded the boulder. The explosion thundered, silencing their voices forever. Shards of rock rained down, cutting her cheek. She didn't flinch. Iron, they're on me. Don't wait, get your men out. Negative, snapped. We don't leave people behind. You don't have a choice. Her voice was steel, and in the silence that followed she knew he understood. The Falcon covered the retreat. That was her role, that was her truth. Another fighter rounded the boulder. Her pistol barked twice. He fell. Above, the team was climbing now, scaling the goat trail, their boots scraping against stone. Every second counted. Every second was blood bought with her trigger pulls. 28 seconds. That's how long she had before the nearest enemy reached her position. She could already hear them, their breaths, their curses. She thought of her grandmother again, of the eagle feather tucked into her drawer back home, of the stories about how the falcon never truly flew alone, the spirits of those before always flew with her. She exhaled, found another target, fired. The falcon was still flying. How long could 37 seconds stretch? To Sarah Falcon Mitchell, crouched behind jagged stone, they stretched into eternity. Boots scraped closer, voices echoing as enemy fighters closed in. Every second felt like a bead of sweat sliding down her spine, slow, heavy, unstoppable. Her rifle wasn't meant for this. Long-range precision, not close-quarters chaos. But she kept her scope trained downrange anyway, pulling the trigger at anything threatening the climbing team. Crack. A fighter fell. Crack. Another. But every shot betrayed her position. Each muzzle flash was a flare pointing enemy rifles toward her. Bullets chipped at stone inches from her face, dust stinging her eyes. Still, she held. Falcon status, voice again. Alive for now. 2 minutes, maybe 3 until we're clear. Can you? I'll hold. She cut him off, her tone flat, final. Because there wasn't a choice. She'd seen the way out. She was the reason they even had one, and she would be the reason they reached it. Her pistol barked twice. 2 fighters crumpled, sliding down rock. Another grenade thundered, throwing bodies and dust into the air. Her ears rang, but she ignored it. She had to. And then above the thunder of rifles and grenades came a new sound, a sound that froze her blood. Helicopter rotors. But not American ones. The low, heavy thump of Soviet-made Mi-17s echoed through the valley. Old machines, but still deadly, and they weren't friendly. Her eyes snapped upward, scanning the horizon. Shadows crested the ridge, 2 birds inbound, their side doors yawning open, armed fighters packed inside. Reinforcements, dozens more. Her chest tightened. She could hold off 10, maybe 15, but dozens, not even the Falcon could keep the sky from raining fire. Iron, listen, she hissed into her radio. You've got inbound Soviet choppers, loaded. You need to move faster. Copy, extraction 2 minutes out. 2 minutes, she almost laughed. 2 minutes might as well have been 2 hours. Her scope swung back to the rooftop figure, the man in civilian clothes, binoculars in hand. He was watching it unfold like a conductor at an orchestra. She could see his lips moving, giving orders. She could see him point straight its position. Her gut screamed again. This wasn't just a commander. This was someone bigger, someone who had planned every detail of this trap. Take the shot, instinct whispered, even if it's impossible, even if it costs everything. She adjusted, calculated, 830 meters, gusting winds, barely enough ammo left. She squeezed. The round slammed into concrete. Missy ducked, vanished. But then something shifted. The enemy below faltered, fire patterns breaking, momentary confusion rippling through. Whatever she'd done, it mattered. Falcon, whatever you just did, keep doing it, Martinez panted into comms. But she couldn't, not forever. The enemy was closing, closer now. She could hear them, breaths, boots, curses shouted in Pashto. The next firefight wouldn't be through a scope, it would be face to face. She pulled her last grenade free, thumb brushing the pin. Her grandmother's voice echoed in memory. When the Falcon is cornered, it doesn't just survive. It reminds the world why it hunts alone. The first fighter rounded the boulder. He barely had time to raise his rifle before her pistol spat. He dropped. Another leapt forward, thinking numbers would overwhelm her. She let the grenade teach him otherwise. The explosion shook the ground. Shards of rock slashed her arm, heat licking across her cheek. She didn't flinch. Falcon's voice again, strained, desperate now. We're almost to the top, hold on, we're coming back for you. Negative, her reply was sharp, immediate. "Get your men out, that's an order." Silence, then static. She imagined them arguing, Martinez swearing, grinding his jaw, but she knew what had to happen. Better one than six. Above, the team clawed their way up the goat path, their silhouettes inching toward freedom. Below, Sarah's world was closing in. Fighters swarmed, their rifles spitting fire, their voices rising. And now, overhead, the helicopters circled lower, rotors cutting the air into thunder. Her rifle clattered empty. She slammed her last magazine home, counted, 6 rounds left, 6 lives she could end, maybe enough to buy 60 more seconds. Her breathing slowed, her vision tunneled. The Falcon doesn't fear the storm, her grandmother whispered across years and distance. It rides it. She squeezed, crack, one hostile down. Crack, another fell, tumbling against the wall. Her lips moved without thinking, a whisper carried away on the wind. One shot at a time, one more second bought. And then through the chaos, through the gunfire, through the screaming rotors, came something she hadn't expected. A voice. "Any American forces in the valley? This is Hammer 1-1. We are 30 seconds out. Close air support inbound. Mark your position." Sarah's heart stuttered. Close air support, Apache. Maybe A-10s, Angels of Steel. She clicked her radio. "Hammer 1-1, this is Falcon. Friendlies climbing west wall, 600 meters northeast of main compound. Danger close. Repeat, danger close." Above, 2 silhouettes broke the horizon. A-64 Apache, wings bristling with missiles, cannons glinting in the sun. Her chest tightened, relief, awe, something close to hope. And then she moved, laser designator in hand, painting targets across the compound. The Apache responded instantly. Hellfire screamed down, turning the main compound into a fireball that shook the valley. Another missile obliterated the helicopter landing zone, sending enemy reinforcements scattering. The 30 cannons opened, ripping lines of fire through stone and flesh alike. The valley shook with thunder. But the fight wasn't over, not for her. Because several fighters were already too close, inside the Apache danger zone. The gunships couldn't help. It was her fight alone. She slammed the bolt, fired 1, 2, 3, bodies fell. Her rifle locked empty. She drew her pistol, breath ragged now, hands trembling for the first time. 4 rounds left, 4 heartbeats of life. The first fighter rounded her cover. She shot him point blank. The second hesitated, long enough for her to put a round in his chest. 2 left, 6 enemies closing. "This is going to be interesting," she muttered, sliding behind another rock as bullets sparked against stone. And then a new sound, a voice she hadn't expected. "Falcon, this is Raven. I'm coming down the cliff face. Hold your position." "Martinez." Her chest lurched. "Negative, Raven, stay with the team." "Sorry, ma'am. Orders were never leave a teammate behind. Besides, someone's gotta make sure you don't hog all the glory." She almost laughed, almost, even as tears pricked hot in her eyes. The Falcon hunted alone, but maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't die alone. His rifle cracked from above. Enemy fighters dropped, their fire breaking, confusion scattering them. He was drawing attention, drawing heat, buying her openings. And she used them, flowing between rocks, pistol spitting, 2 rounds, 2 kills. Then silence, dust settling, the valley still trembling from Apache fire, fell quiet around her. Her chest heaved, her pistol clicked empty, her rifle lay silent. And she realized, against every odd, against every number, she was still alive. Why did survival feel heavier than death? Sarah sat in the extraction bird, her body pressed against the vibrating metal wall, helmet still on, rifle across her knees. Her hands shook now in the quiet after the storm. Not during, never during, but after. When the adrenaline bled away, when the silence filled every space the gunfire had left. That was when the trembling came. Martinez sat across from her, face streaked with dust and blood, knuckles raw from the cliff. He caught her eye, gave a half-smile. It wasn't victory, it wasn't relief. It was something quieter, an acknowledgement. We're still here, somehow. Sat rigid, headset pressed to his ears, listening to comms traffic Sarah couldn't hear. His face was stone, but his eyes burned. None of them spoke. Not yet. The whine of the rotors carried them out of the valley, away from smoke still rising, away from the ruins of the compound that had nearly swallowed them whole. Sarah leaned her head back against cold metal and let her eyes close for a moment. She thought she'd see bodies, gunfire, the rooftop figure who had slipped away into smoke, but instead she saw her grandmother, standing on the plains of South Dakota, wind tugging her hair, eagle feather in hand. The falcon always returns home, little one, no matter how far the hunt takes her. She didn't feel like she was going home. The debriefing came hours later. Sterile room, fluorescent lights buzzing like insects, a table littered with water bottles untouched. The 6 men of SEAL Team 6 sat slumped in chairs, eyes hollow, uniforms dusted with blood and dirt. And Sarah, the only one who didn't look away when the door opened. Admiral Reeves entered. Older, seasoned, his uniform pressed with the weight of decades. His gaze swept the room, landing on her for a beat too long before he spoke. "Lieutenant Mitchell, Commander, you've been through hell." His voice was grave, even respectful, but beneath it Sarah heard something else. Hesitation. He slid a folder across the table. Photos, documents, satellite shots. He began to explain. The compound had been a trap, yes, but not just for them. The man Sarah had seen on the roof, one of the most wanted financiers in Southwest Asia, invisible for 3 years, a ghost, until today. Her impossible shot hadn't killed him, but it had wounded him. Badly. Bad enough he would seek medical care, exposing himself. Pakistani forces had picked him up days later. His intel was already unraveling entire networks. Sarah should have felt satisfaction, vindication, but instead her stomach churned. Because Reeves wasn't finished. The CIA operative they'd been sent to rescue, he was never there, never had been. He'd been moved 3 days earlier. The intel they'd received had been bait, not bait for the SEALs, bait for. Her eyes narrowed. "You used us." Reeves didn't answer at first. His silence was confirmation enough. His jaw flexed, voice low and sharp. "We were sent into a kill box without knowing it." "You were sent," Reeves corrected carefully, "into a scenario that produced results, is in custody. 14 planned attacks disrupted, 60 high-value targets captured. That doesn't happen without you." Sarah's chair scraped as she stood, the sound harsh in the small room. "We almost died because someone decided we were expendable, chess pieces, acceptable losses." Reeves met her stare evenly. "Lieutenant, in 28 years I've learned that trust doesn't lie in systems. It lies in the people beside you. You trusted each other. That's why you came back." The words were meant to steady, to soothe, but they didn't, not for her. Because she remembered Martinez rappelling down the cliff against orders, steady voice in the chaos, the Apache risking their birds to cover her. Trust wasn't the issue. She had that. She always had. The betrayal came from above, from men who never bled, never crouched behind stone with 30 seconds left to live. Later in her quarters, Sarah sat alone. The walls felt closer than the valley had. Her hands shook again, this time not from adrenaline but from anger. Her grandmother's feather lay on the table, edges worn, fragile against the harsh light. She reached out, brushed it with her fingertip. "The Falcon serves the people, not the chiefs," her grandmother had always said. But what if the chiefs were willing to sacrifice the people? The Navy Cross ceremony came weeks later. Cameras, flashbulbs, speeches about bravery, sacrifice, duty. Sarah stood in uniform, medal pinned to her chest, her face a mask carved from stone. People applauded. Officials shook her hand. But the words washed over her hollow. Because medals couldn't erase betrayal. Applause couldn't silence the question echoing inside her. Had she been protecting her team, or had she been a pawn protecting someone's game? Afterward, Martinez found her outside, away from the crowd, the ocean stretching dark and endless beyond the base. "You've been different since," he said. "No preamble, just truth." Sarah stared at the waves. They reminded her of the lakes back home, endless, shifting, unforgiving. "My grandmother used to tell me the Falcon serves the people. I thought that meant serving my country, but if the country's leaders see us as expendable," she trailed off. Martinez was quiet for a long moment, then said, "You know what I learned in that valley? The mission didn't matter. The politics didn't matter. What mattered was you stayed on that ridge and kept us alive. Even when the intel was a lie. Especially then, you still did the right thing." Her throat tightened. "Falcon isn't about orders," he added softly. "It's about protecting your own. You did that, that's what matters." She nodded, though the weight didn't lift easily. Weeks passed. The weight dulled but never disappeared. She carried it with her into training sessions, into long nights at the range, into the silence of her quarters. It lived in the spaces between breaths, in the questions she didn't speak aloud. Until the next briefing came. A new assignment, counterterrorism in Southeast Asia, requested her by name. She stared at the orders for a long time. Then she thought of her grandmother, of Martinez, of the team that had followed her into fire and back. And she whispered, "Yeah, I'm interested." Because the Falcon didn't stop flying just because the skis were stormed. It hunted again. What happens when the war follows you home? 2 years after the valley, Sarah stood in a briefing room that looked nothing like Afghanistan. No dust, no mountains, just walls lined with screens, maps alive with glowing coordinates, red circles spreading like infection. The hum of electronics filled the silence. She wasn't the rookie anymore. The sideways glances had stopped long ago. She was Falcon now, her reputation etched into the community like scar tissue. But reputation didn't quiet the unease curling in her stomach as Commander spoke. "It's confirmed," he said grimly, pointer tapping the map. "Has escaped Pakistani custody 2 weeks ago. Broke out with help. Armed men smuggled transport money that vanished into the cracks. He's alive, and he hasn't forgotten." Sarah's chest tightened. She didn't need the explanation. She saw it in the maps, the red circles around cities, military bases, suburbs. And she felt it deep in her bones. This wasn't about battlefields anymore. His voice dropped lower. "Intercepts suggest coordinated attacks on military families, wives, children. He wants to hurt us where we're unarmed, where we live." Silence fell heavy in the room. Even hardened seals shifted uneasily at those words. Sarah's jaw clenched. Her grandmother's ranch flickered in her mind, the quiet plains of South Dakota, distant cousins who still lived there. Innocents who had no idea who she was, what she'd done, or why a man across the world might hate them. Her hand twitched, almost unconsciously brushing the eagle feather pinned inside her locker back on base. "What's the plan?" she asked finally, her voice sharper than she intended. His gaze met hers, steady, heavy. "We're bait." The word cut through the room. "Wants you, Falcon. He wants the one who clipped him in that valley. Intel suggests he's been waiting for the chance. We leak your location. He comes for you. We take him out." Martinez swore under his breath. Johnson's jaw tightened. Even Reeves, standing in the corner, shifted. Sarah felt the weight settle. It wasn't new. It was familiar. She'd always been the one to hold the ridge, to buy time, to draw fire so the rest could move. But this was different. This wasn't a battlefield. This was personal. Her voice came out low even. "And if he doesn't take the bait?" Didn't blink. "Then we hunt him. Martinez is tracking his financials. Johnson's mapping his comms. We're closing the net, but either way this ends. Now." Sarah turned toward the window. Outside, young SEALs ran drills, their boots pounding through mud. They were barely older than she'd been when she first learned to shoot, and wanted to hurt their families. Her stomach burned, rage quiet but sharp. She'd faced ambushes, betrayals. She stood alone against storms of fire. But the thought of children, innocent children, being used as pawns, that struck deeper than any bullet ever had. "When do we leave?" she asked. 48 hours, said, his voice softened then. "But understand, this isn't Afghanistan. He knows you. He knows your team. He studied you for 2 years. He's chosen this fight." Sarah met his gaze steady. "Good. Then he knows exactly what he's getting into." That night Sarah sat in her quarters cleaning her rifle. Slow, methodical. The ritual grounded her. She ran a cloth through the barrel, checked every spring, every bolt. Her grandmother's rhythm. The letters lay folded on the table beside her. Letters to cousins in South Dakota. To friends she hadn't spoken to in years. Words that might be the last she ever gave them. She picked one up, hesitated, then set it back down. Some things were harder than firefights. Later she joined her team at the bar near base. It was tradition. One night of laughter, one night of humanity before missions that might be their last. The bar was dim, filled with the scent of spilled beer and fried food. But for them, it was sanctuary. Martinez raised his glass, his voice for once stripped of sarcasm. "To the Falcon, who taught us protecting family means more than following orders." Sarah lifted her own glass, her throat tight. "To the team, who taught me that family isn't just blood." They drank, they laughed. They shared stories they'd told a dozen times before because sometimes repetition was comfort. For a few hours, the war felt far away. But when Sarah returned to her quarters, the silence pressed in again. She touched the eagle feather on her wall, fragile and strong all at once. "The falcon may hunt alone, little one, but she never truly flies alone." Her grandmother's voice lingered as she closed her eyes. 2 days later, the mission began. They leaked her location carefully, feeding the whispers of intel that men would chase. A training facility in Virginia. Falcon scheduled to run sniper drills. Vulnerable. Exposed. It was a lie, of course, but lies had nearly killed her once before. She wouldn't let them again. This time she would use them. She lay prone on the range, rifle resting steady, scope glinting in the morning sun. The facility was crawling with quiet shadows, operators hidden, drones circling overhead, eyes everywhere. But to anyone watching from outside, it looked like one woman alone. Bait. Her heartbeat was steady, her breath slow. The calm before the storm felt familiar, almost comforting. But beneath it, a question gnawed. What if he didn't take it? What if, instead of walking into the trap, he sent men to South Dakota, to her grandmother's ranch, to the families of the men beside her? Her finger tapped against the trigger guard. Tap, tap, tap. The waiting was worse than the firefight, always. Through her scope she scanned the tree line beyond the range. Nothing, empty, too empty. And then movement. A shadow slipping between trees, another, a glint of metal. Her pulse quickened. The falcon was hunting again. How do you know when the trap is no longer yours? Sarah's cheek pressed against cool steel, her rifle steady as she peered downrange. The training facility stretched quiet in the morning light. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that gnawed at nerves, that whispered of something hiding just beyond sight. Her breath slowed, in through the nose, out through the mouth. The world narrowed to her scope. The tree line, empty, no, not empty. Shadows shifted between trunks. Metal caught sunlight in quick flashes. Fighters, moving with discipline, slipping into position. Her throat tightened. They'd come, had taken the bait. "Falcon, this is Iron's," voice murmured through her calm. He was in the operations truck, a mile away, monitoring every camera, every drone feed. Eyes confirmed 20+ hostiles closing in. Possible vehicle support inbound. Hold position. Let them commit. Sarah's finger brushed the trigger guard. Waiting, always waiting. Her instincts hummed. Something wasn't right. 20 fighters wasn't enough. Not for he wanted her, yes, but he wanted spectacle. He wanted to tear her apart in front of her own people. There's more coming, she felt it. The first wave broke from the trees. Dressed in mismatched gear, rifles slung, they moved fast, low, fanning out across the range. Not amateurs, trained, mercenaries maybe, or worse, men who'd survived enough firefights to adapt on instinct. Falcon, hold, repeated. She exhaled, adjusted, and held. They moved closer, 50 meters, 40. Then one of them raised a hand, signaling the others to halt. He looked directly at her position, as if he knew exactly where she was. Sarah's pulse spiked. Compromised, she whispered. They know. The fighter dropped his hand, and chaos erupted. Gunfire shattered the morning. Muzzle flashes strobed from the tree line. Bullets chewed dirt and concrete across the range, ricocheting with shrieks of steel. Sarah's rifle kicked against her shoulder, crack. One hostile down, crack. Another dropped, chest exploding red. But they weren't charging blindly. They were pinning her, suppressing, driving her to move, hurting her. Her grandmother's voice echoed in memory. The falcon doesn't let itself be driven. It rides the wind others fear. Sarah rolled from her nest, slipping behind a low wall as rounds shredded her previous position. She landed hard, lungs heaving, then steadied. Scope up. Crack, a third hostile folded. Falcon sitrep demanded. Engaged, they know where I am. At least 25, possibly more. Feels staged. Static filled her ear for a beat before Reeves' voice cut in, calm, clinical. That's confirmation's playbook. He's here. He wouldn't waste this on a proxy. Her chest tightened. If he was here, that meant he wanted her to see him. The firefight surged. Explosions rocked the far end of the range, mortars, crude but effective, lobbing smoke and fire across open ground. Operators hidden around the facility opened up, returning fire. Shadows clashed in smoke and dirt, gunfire echoing like thunder. Sarah's world narrowed again. Scope, breath, trigger, crack. A hostile trying to flank the perimeter dropped. Crack. Another scrambling to set a heavy weapon fell lifeless. But even as she fired, her instincts prickled. This wasn't the main event. This was noise, cover. And then she saw him. At the edge of the smoke, standing calm while chaos tore around him. Clean clothes, neatly trimmed beard, eyes scanning the battlefield with sharp, cold calculation. Yep. Her gut clenched. 2 years hadn't dulled him. If anything, he looked sharper, like a man who had been waiting for this very moment. Her scope centered on him. Breath in, breath out. But then he raised a child. Sarah's chest locked. A boy, 10, maybe 11. Dirty clothes, wrists bound, a shield. Her finger froze on the trigger. Through her earpiece barked, Falcon, do you have the shot? I can't, her voice cracked raw. Do you confirm target is? Confirmed. Then take it. Negative, her whisper was ice. He's holding a child. Silence pressed hard in her ears. She could hear only her own breath, ragged now, and the distant rattle of machine guns. Her hands trembled, not with fear, with rage. Because knew her. He knew she wouldn't pull the trigger. He knew her strength and her limits. He wanted her paralyzed. Her grandmother's voice rose again, softer this time. Sometimes the falcon doesn't strike. Sometimes it waits. It chooses. Sarah lowered her rifle a fraction. Not surrender, patience. Falcon, this is iron, options. Working on it. The firefight raged around her. Explosions tore the range. Screams cut through smoke. Held the boy like a trophy, dragging him toward cover, daring anyone to take the shot. Sarah shifted positions, crawling low across concrete, bullets sparking inches from her. She tucked behind a steel barrier, heart hammering, brain spinning. She couldn't take him clean, not without killing the boy, but if he escaped, more families would pay, more children would suffer. Her jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Then she saw it. A reflection in the shattered glass of a blown-out window. His angle, his stance, the way he exposed his side every time he moved the boy forward. She exhaled, slid her rifle up, calculated, not a kill shot, not this time. She squeezed. The round tore into his shoulder, spinning him sideways. The boy tumbled free, scrambling in terror. Staggered, roared in pain, but lived. His men surged around him, dragging him into smoke, covering his retreat. Sarah shifted, firing again, but her magazine clicked empty. Her curse was swallowed by gunfire. Falcon status. Wounded him, not fatal, he's pulling back. Do not pursue, Reeves cut in sharp. We need confirmation on intel, hold perimeter. Sarah bit down hard, rage flaring. She wanted to chase him, wanted to finish it, but orders held. Smoke thickened, gunfire ebbed, and then silence. The facility was riddled with bullet holes, scorch marks, shell casings scattered like bones. The boy was gone, taken by medics. Fighters lay sprawled, dead or dying, their rifles cooling in the dirt. But had slipped away, again. Sarah lowered her rifle, her chest heaved, her hands shook. Not with relief, with fury. Because this wasn't over. It had only just begun. How do you fight an enemy who already knows your soul? The smoke at the Virginia range still clung to Sarah's clothes when the next blow landed. Not with bullets, with news. 2 nights later, an explosion ripped through the quiet streets of San, a house flattened. The family inside gone. The father had served as a SEAL. The wife had volunteered at the base. Their daughter, only 9, had been tucked into bed. Sarah read the report once, twice, 3 times. The words blurred. Had missed his kill in Virginia, but he hadn't left empty-handed. He had learned something. He had learned that targeting warriors wasn't enough. To break them, he would target love itself. Sarah's chest felt like stone. She thought of her cousins in South Dakota, still running the ranch where she'd learned to shoot. Of his wife. Of Martinez's mother, who still mailed cookies to the team even after deployments no one talked about. This wasn't war, it was personal vengeance. The next morning, Sarah sat across from in a dim command tent overseas. He looked older than he had in Afghanistan, the lines in his face carved deeper. He's not running anymore, said flatly. He's circling. Every attack is closer, more personal. He wants you. He wants us. Sarah said nothing. Her rifle leaned against the table beside her, polished and silent. She traced her finger along the stock as if it could ground her. What's the play? Martinez asked from the corner. His voice was quiet, stripped of humor. We hunt, said, but we don't hunt blind. We use what he wants against him. Again. Sarah's jaw tightened. The last time they had been bait, a child had been dragged into the line of fire. She could still see the boy's terrified eyes. She could still feel the weight of her hesitation. She didn't want to be bait, not again. But she knew. She was the Falcon, she didn't get to choose the hunt. 3 days later, the team moved into Southeast Asia, tracking whispers of his network. Money trails, arms shipments, every thread led closer. Sarah's scope became her world again, rooftops in crowded cities, dense jungle, crumbling industrial parks. She scanned for movement, for patterns others missed, and always in the back of her mind she felt him, watching, waiting. At night when the team regrouped in, Martinez would try to lighten the silence. You know, he said once, gnawing at a ration bar, he's scared of you. Sarah looked up. Think about it. He doesn't send random guys after you. He comes himself. He drags kids into the line of fire because he knows he can't face you clean. That's fear, Falcon, twisted but fear. She wanted to believe him, but fear didn't stop men like it fueled them. The hunt stretched across weeks. Every firefight bled into the next. Every lead pulled them deeper. And Sarah began to feel it, the fraying edge of herself. She had always carried the weight of her grandmother's stories, of the team's doubt, of the ridge in Afghanistan, but now the weight shifted. It wasn't just about proving herself. It was about carrying lives that weren't hers, families she had never met, children whose names she didn't know. And it was breaking her. One night in a crumbling in Manila, she sat alone cleaning her rifle. Her hands shook, not from adrenaline, from exhaustion, from anger that never left. Entered quietly, sat across from her, watched her for a long moment. "You're carrying too much," he said finally. She didn't look up. "I'm carrying what I have to." "No," he said softly. "You're carrying more. You're carrying guilt that isn't yours." Her jaw clenched. "If I'd pulled the trigger in Virginia, you'd have killed a child. I'd have ended this." His voice sharpened. "At what cost?" Her eyes burned, but she didn't let tears fall. She couldn't. "Falcon," he said, gentler now, "you've kept us alive more times than I can count. You've carried the weight when no one else could, but you don't have to carry it alone." For the first time, she let her eyes meet his, and for the first time she saw not just a commander, but someone who understood, someone who had carried too much too. She exhaled, shaky, heavy, but something inside her loosened just enough. The next day, intel broke. In Jakarta, by satellite, men moving crates, weapons, comms gear. The team geared up. Sarah checked her rifle, her sidearm, her grenades. The motions were second nature. But this time, as she slid the eagle feather into her vest pocket, she whispered something under her breath. "Not today. You don't get to win today." The assault came fast, brutal. They erupted in gunfire, shadows colliding in smoke and flame. Sarah's scope tracked targets through shattered windows, 3 men with RPGs. Gone. 2 more flanking Martinez. Gone. But as the firefight raged, her gut twisted again. This wasn't the end. This was. And then through the chaos, her comm crackled. A voice smooth, familiar. "Falcon." Her blood ran cold. It wasn't radio chatter. It was him, speaking across a hijacked channel, speaking to her. "You wound me, but you cannot kill me," his voice purred. "You protect families, but how many more must die because of you?" Sarah froze, her scope wavered. He was taunting her, dragging her into his game. His voice cut in, urgent. "Do not respond, Falcon, stay focused." But her chest burned, her finger twitched. She wanted to answer, she wanted to scream, but she didn't. Instead, she steadied, found another target, fired. The firefight ended minutes later. There was rubble, dozens of fighters dead, but gone again. And Sarah knew this wasn't coincidence. He was close, watching, always just out of reach. That night she couldn't sleep. She sat on the rooftop of watching the city lights flicker. Martinez joined her, silent at first. "You ever think about quitting?" he asked finally. She shook her head. "Me neither," he said, then softer. "But I do think about what comes after if we make it through this." Sarah didn't answer, because she couldn't see after, not yet. She could only see, and the reckoning waiting between them. What does it take to end a hunt that never ends? The answer came one humid night in a city that pulsed with too many lights and too many shadows. Jakarta. Sarah crouched on a rooftop, the skyline stretching jagged around her. Neon bled into smog. Sirens wailed in the distance, muffled beneath the hum of restless streets. Below, a warehouse sprawled against the river, rusted metal siding painted with decades of grime. Drones overhead confirmed movement inside, fighters, crates, enough weapons to arm an uprising. And one more thing. Heat signature, central office, stationary. Yep. Sarah's chest tightened. 2 years, dozens of dead, families broken. Nights haunted by his voice on stolen comms. It all came down to this. Falcon's voice came softly through her earpiece. "Your eyes on. Confirm target before we breach." "Copy." Her scope glided across rusted walls, through grimy windows. Fighters stalked corridors, rifles slung, nerves on edge, and then him. Clean clothes, immaculate even here. Posture regal as if filth could not touch him. His arm was bandaged still, the wound she'd carved into him in Virginia. His face carried the shadow of pain, but his eyes gleamed sharp. Confirmed. Her finger tightened on the trigger. She could end it now. One shot, a bullet through glass steel smoke. But something in her stilled. Because killing him here in silence wasn't enough. This wasn't about revenge, not anymore. This was about showing him that he had failed. Her grandmother's voice whispered, "The Falcon doesn't just strike, it chooses when the world must see." Sarah exhaled. Target confirmed, proceed. The night erupted. The team breached from 3 sides. Doors splintered, thundered. Fighters stumbled in confusion as shadows poured through smoke. Martinez, Johnson, others, each moving with lethal rhythm. Gunfire split the air, cries of shock and pain. The warehouse became a storm. And through it all Sarah moved, fluid, focused. Her rifle dropped 2 men guarding the stairwell. Her pistol barked against a third who burst through smoke. Step by step, she carved a path toward the office. She reached the door, kicked it open. And there he was. Stood calm behind a desk littered with maps, his good hand resting casually on a pistol. His eyes flicked up, and for the first time Sarah saw something strange there. Not fear, not rage. Recognition. "Falcon," he said softly, almost warmly. "At last." Her pistol leveled, her heart pounded. He didn't flinch. "You could kill me," he said. "Right now, 1 shot, but it won't end. Others will rise, they always do. What will you have achieved? Another ghost, another name." His voice was smooth, practiced. A man who had convinced others to die for him. Sarah's hand trembled, just slightly, because beneath his words lay something she couldn't deny: truth. Killing him wouldn't stop it all. It never did. But then she thought of the little boy he had dragged in front of him, of the house in sand, shattered by fire, of her cousins in South Dakota, blissfully unaware that a man across the world wanted them erased. And she knew. This wasn't about ending war. It was about ending him. Her jaw tightened. "You're wrong," she said. "The Falcon doesn't hunt to end the world, it hunts to protect it." His eyes narrowed, just slightly. She fired. The round slammed into his chest, center mass. He staggered, eyes wide, blood blooming across his shirt. He gasped, one hand clutching the desk, the other grasping for the pistol that never fired. He collapsed. Silence filled the office. For the first time in 2 years, Sarah's chest loosened. Martinez burst through the door seconds later, rifle sweeping. He saw his body, then her. His lips curved into the smallest, fiercest smile. "About damn time." The extraction was clean. For once. The warehouse burned behind them, flames licking the night sky, erasing weapons, lies, and the ghost of a man who had haunted them too long. On the flight out, Sarah sat near the open hatch, wind tearing at her hair. Below, the city lights blurred. Martinez dropped beside her, offering a water bottle. She took it, drank, then set it down. "You good?" he asked quietly. She stared into the dark. "I don't know." Because even with dead, she knew was right. Others would rise. Other wars would come. The hunt never truly ended. But she also knew something else. She had chosen not just to kill, to protect. The Falcon's way. Weeks later, back at base, she found herself once again in front of a room full of young SEALs. Wide-eyed, hungry, not yet. She told them about patience, about seeing what others missed, about carrying the weight of a team even when no one saw it. She didn't tell them about betrayal, about what it felt like to hesitate with a child in the crosshairs. Some truths were too heavy for those not yet tested. But when one asked her the question, "How do you know when to take the shot?" she paused. And then she said, "You don't take it for yourself. You take it for the ones who can't fight back, for the ones who never chose this war. That's how you know." Later, alone in her office, she set the eagle feather back on her desk. It caught the sunlight through the window, glowing soft and golden. She thought of her grandmother's words one last time. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. Sarah smiled faintly. The Falcon had acted, and the world for now was safe.